Okay, so you can get a sense of what we're doing here. I first cut out the vertical fin and stabilizer, or vertical fin and rudder rather. So we just trace the pattern onto the cardstock using this tissue paper. Trace that against the plan, flip it over, scrub the line onto the cardstock, cut it out, and you've got your template. Trace that onto 2 pieces of 16th inch balsa for 1/8 inch net thickness. You want the grain on one side going one way and on the other side crosswise. That's called cross banding, and that keeps it from warping. That keeps this piece of wood from warping or twisting. So we cut it out, sand it to shape, and it fits on to the tail, something like this. All right. Anyway, that's the vertical. Then we do the horizontal stabilizer and elevator. So here it is on the plan. As you can see, the big one is the flying stabilizer. That's for an airplane that you're going to put a rubber band motor or electric motor and fly. Needs to be a lot larger than the scale. So here we have the scale outline. You see that? So it points to the dotted line. So the way you get that, since it's only the dotted line is only drawn onto half of the illustration, what you have to do is fold it in half. Pardon my buttery fingers. So you fold the piece in half, and then when you cut the dotted line, you're cutting out the overall piece. You just have to make sure that you're folding it on the center line. Alright, so you take that out, lay it onto your cardstock and trace it. That gives you your cardstock template. The reason you don't want to just trace this onto paper, onto the balsa wood, you start trying to trace paper, this thin paper, it's going to start folding on you as you're going around the line. So you want something stiffer. That's where the cardstock comes in. So your template has actually got to be better if it's cardstock. Trace that onto the part that'll be either the top or bottom half of your stabilizer, and there it is. And for this I use the 4-inch width strip stock. The typical options for 16th inch and better is 4 inches max width and 3 inches width and so on. 4-inch wide is what I buy, and it's for that reason. So now we need a crossband, and since it's not big enough obviously to crossband it, and you see our 4-inch width isn't going to cover, you have to do that in section. And the way I do it is I just line this up more or less horizontally here. We trace this. Now we're using this as template because it's the size we're actually going to cover. And then I would trace that on here and cut it out. That would then be fitted to this piece. And then what you want to do is, because you have a straight edge here, you would just then hook that over until it's lined up on both sides. You would feel that, and then you draw the next piece and cut that out, and then again you're going to use that lip edge now as your straight edge, and you'll just hook that over and then trace that one out and cut it free. And that way, because you're using the straight edge here, it's going to fit together real nice. It'll be seamless on this side. The putty that you're going to put on anyway, I'm going to be spackling both sides of this and getting it smooth, getting rid of the wood grain anyway, and that same spackle would fill any gap that I might inadvertently make. But overall you're going to have a nice seamless cross-banded horizontal stabilizer and elevator. And once it's all done, then I can take this piece, I can cut this off here, then use that as a template to draw my divider between the elevator and the stabilizer. We can do the same thing with the rudder. Actually separate it into 2 pieces and hinge it if we want. That's if we want to go all in. Otherwise what I would do is just draw the lines onto the airplane after it's painted. Draw them, or use trim tape, cut in very thin strips, 16th inch strip, to replicate, or what am I trying to say? To be that line. All right. So anyway, here we go. You can see this lays in here pretty good. It lines up here at the back. We'll end up, when we get that in there and fitted, we'll either fill it or sand it smooth, or both, and that'll be a nice and seamless and flush once it's 1/8 inch thick. And once that's on there, then we can get this at a right angle. Make sure we get that vertical, and we'll have our tail done. Then we can start on the wing. But that's how I do the tail surfaces for the most part. You know, if I don't necessarily want to build them up, when I have patterns, I can just make them solid, and I can replicate whatever I need to. Ribbing, you know, stitching. If I want to try and replicate that stuff, I can do that after the fact. So there. That's a quick, easy way to get the empennage. Okay. Later.